Hey, so I am Kevin Loker, and I did some research last semester with your professor here, and I'm here to talk about it just briefly. I'm actually here sitting in a hotel room in beautiful San Francisco for the Online News Association conference, which is my employer. Big meetup of a bunch of digital journalists who come together to kind of talk about technology and journalism, which is kind of a cool thing 'cause about how people interact with each other with technology, which is also kind of what my research project was about that I worked on last semester. My research project was called Us in Real Life, IRL, a status update on romantic relationships and college students and the technology that connects them. Um, and it was really cool. I came across the idea kind of through my own experience, and it's something that you guys can probably relate to as well. There's a lot of technology that college students use, and it's something that you use in various capacities of social interaction. And you interact with your friends, you interact with student orgs, you interact with news, you interact with so many different people online, so many different um, things and organizations and that, and you also like interact with people in social situations that you had never really done before. And one of those that was really interesting for me, from partially from my experience and partially just from observing the experiences of others, was the way in which college students interact with people of like a romantic interest through technology, through instant communications technology, through Facebook, through texting, through Twitter, through all these different things that allow people to connect with each other in ways that previously had not been around and only recently came about. Um, and I decided to focus on romantic relationships because that's something that college students are experiencing. You may have experienced in this room, and I wanted to take a look at how the introduction of this instant communications technology, this new medium of communicating with each other, was shifting how relationships happened, how this social arrangement of a man meeting a woman, or a man meeting a man, or a woman meeting a woman in a romantic context. I wanted to see how technology, how being able to use Facebook and texting to get to know someone was changing how people got to know someone. And so I decided to do the undergraduate research program, and I decided to work with your professor, um, and really just look at not necessarily statistics about how people are interacting with each other, which I knew would be useful, but the kind of the qualitative side of how people felt about that, how people felt about getting a text from someone and not knowing how to respond because you kind of liked them and wanted to like perform in a way to get them to like you back, or just kind of like agonizing over what emoticon to use. Do I use a smiley here? Or do I use a sticky out tongue thing here? Do I use a wink here? I wanted to see what people were thinking about when they were using Facebook and texting, not just like generally, but when they were getting to know someone, when they had a romantic interest in someone. And I decided the qualitative information was the best thing to do that with. And I thought that interviews would be the best way to get that, of course. That a survey would be cool for like kind of the quantitative information, but you were going to get good stories out of just talking to people, just asking them about things like what is an emoticon, and like what does that mean when you get that from anyone, and what does that mean when you get that from someone that you're kind of interested in. What does like punctuation mean for someone, anyone that you're interacting with through like a text or through a Facebook chat, and what does that mean for someone that you're maybe trying to get to know that you have a romantic interest in. And I wanted to see like where those different distinctions were, and I wanted to capture it in a way that would be useful for this like a traditional report, but also would just be useful for people to know. So what I did was that I started last semester having these interviews with college students on campus. You might know some of the people that I interviewed, and I would go to them and I just kind of asked really open-ended questions about like, are you in a relationship? How did you meet that person? Have you been any like miscommunications before? And like just kind of trying to identify like basic things that you could ask anyone about and see. I wanted to see if like technology came up with that, and then I would ask kind of specific things about have you ever gotten confused about like emoticons in text, or like have you ever not known like when to respond to someone, if the time of day was important, or if like there was a time it was too late to respond to someone, or like when was a soon enough time, or like when was too soon to you friend someone on Facebook, and what did those things actually mean that we engage with in relationships and just friendships, but in the context of a relationship, what do these technological gestures actually mean to people? And so what I kind of found was that through these interviews, which I captured on video for a website, which is really kind of cool, what I found was that people have a lot of anxiety about how they interact with people online, and it really affects the in real life thing that they do. And the what I was kind of getting at, and what I've talked about a little bit in my research, and what I'm continuing to find in the people that I interview and the people that I'm going to continue to interview, is that the way the anxiety comes from is that the two parties in this getting to know you thing have different expectations of how you use technology. There's not a standard way of what an emoticon means. There's not a standard way of like, at this time or this soon is it means this, or this emoticon means this. And people have different thoughts on what these things are, and they aren't communicated when you're getting to know someone, especially when you're getting to know someone, and that creates like kind of like a dissonance in that context, and you don't know how to relate to someone, and the reason that which kind of keeps coming up is kind of because of a couple different factors that I think falls into how modern instant communications technology works, and one of that is the fact that things are always on. This communication is never off for thousands of years, hundreds of years. If you just don't want to go back thousands of years, people were never always on in communication. You were only on in communication when you were interacting with someone in real life, and now there's kind of this segmented way of communicating with people. You can send a text and you don't have to respond right away because it's not face-to-face communication, and there's a bunch of variances with like how soon do I respond to someone, how late do I respond to someone, that and how like even like the introduction of being always on introduces that kind of sense of, do I need to be interacting with someone because this something reminded me of them and I can make a cute joke about it. That always on thing changes the game just by being there. And by introducing the instant communications technology, you also introduce the fact that things are lightweight, that you don't have to engage in like a full conversation with someone at any period of time. You can just have these sort of, this lightweight contact of, saying, this thing reminded me of you, and then move on. And it changes the game, because that's not how regular conversation usually goes with someone that you're trying to get to know, someone like you're trying to get to know. You don't usually have that. And then one of the other thing that I found is that there's this notion of semi-public / private, / I don't really know what this communication actually is. Beforehand, people only had communication with one another, and you knew who knew what. There was no worry of a copy and paste thing. There was no sense of, I'm going to go to this person and get their opinion before I respond to this text, because I want to make myself look really good to them, and I want to get my friend's opinion because they're going to tell me what is going to make me look best for this person that I want to get to like me, because I want to live happily ever after with them. That sort of stuff never really happened before, and basically there's this new introduction of all these different social factors that I find completely fascinating, and I think what's important to do before you look at any sort of like numbers or anything is to get the actual like qualitative tidbits, like stories, examples, the kind of ethnography-ish data to have as a jumping off point to having bigger discussions about how we're interacting with technology and how that's changing social structures across the board, because it is, if you recognize the fact that like a man meets a woman and there's a marriage, and that is kind of like a kind of building block of a society, or a man meets a man and they have a civil union or a marriage, and that is like a thing that kind of influences society. The way they get to know each other and the way that they like pair up is important, and it's important to look at like what those foundations are and how they start, and what people's thoughts are about them. And what I'm finding is that there's just a lot of anxiety, and I just think it's really fascinating and something worth discussing. And um, that's what I'm looking at right now, and that's kind of how I came about it, and those are the factors that I think are playing into it. So that was kind of me just rambling, but I hope it's useful for you in some sort of way. And yeah, I hope you have a good day, and maybe I can talk to you again sometime. Take care. Bye from San Francisco.